we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means, on infiltration instead of invasion, on intimidation instead of free choice, on guerrillas by night instead of armies by day. There is little value in ensuring the survival of our nation if our traditions do not survive with it.
All right, welcome to episode 103 of the Abuse Hour. It is I, your host, Coffee Long, coming to you unsupervised, unmedicated, and an unchecked threat to society. I am rolling hard, new year, new mental illness in the mobile Doomsday Studios. Headed once again to the airport for finally at fucking last a client who's not wasting my time with, like, yeah, come and do this. Well, actually, no, it's not a good time. Maybe another time. Well, maybe this week. Well, no, why don't you spend a bunch of fucking days writing things out for me and then I'll forget that we even talked. All right, great. So anyway, yeah, man, I am off and running, and there's plenty of stuff to talk about, man. Plenty. I mean, the news thing almost, I mean, what is there to say? What really is there to say? But there is a lot of other stuff to talk about, and I guess what's sort of weird is it, and I don't know if it's just me, man. I don't know if it's the itis and the tism acting up or what, man. But is it just me, or does it seem like there's some weird shit afoot? Like I'm supposed to be convinced that, oh, Trump's back in charge and the pendulum is swinging the other way, bro. Trust me, bro, and everything's gonna be good now. Except it's not going to be good. It's in exactly what direction the trick fuckery is going to come from, I can't say. But it just, to me, seems like there's some shystiness afoot. You know, whereby, I don't know, dude. Is it going to be war for Israel? Is it going to be like some kind of weird lockdown? Is it like this is the relaxed part where they suddenly start snatching up all your information, and 2 or 3 years from now, then like the home invasions will start? Who knows, man? I do not know. But a couple things I can be sure of. I'll tell you what I can be sure of. Here's what I can be sure of is I saw this clip of Jonathan Greenblatt speaking I think he was speaking in Israel, and he's talking about, you know, we see this rise in anti-Semitism, and we see it online and a lot of people talking about it, and we need someone to address it, and we need the kind of ingenuity that brought us the pager bombs that we sent to Hamas. So to kind of be clear here, like, you know, imagine if your state representative or your president put some shit out like that where they're like, hey, you know, there's some people who are critical of me, and the kind of people we need solving that problem are the same people who were blowing people up, you know, remotely, maybe sometimes blowing up their kids, killing bystanders, whatever. But that's the kind of people that we need solving this problem. People would be up their ass. And like, dude, don't say those things. It paints the wrong picture. Like, go back and say you didn't mean what it sounded like you said. You got to straighten yourself out. And they would, dude. They'd be like, yeah, I talked sort of out of line. That's not what I meant. It was taken out of context. But they would say something, but not this motherfucker. Like, this is a guy who theoretically has no real hand in government operations or creating of policy. We're just a league. We just promote, you know, equality and fair treatment and da-da-da-da-da. But now, no. They're actually calling for you specifically, to be killed. You know, via some remote control explosive that they spend a great many years putting in play. So, yeah, anyway, apart from that, man, some of the stuff that I wanted to hit on I'd say this week, but I mean, if you Google inconsistency, it's a picture of me. It's like a cup of coffee right there, and it's like, this asshole is not what you'd call consistent. I don't know who it was in the chat that was like, this coffee guy, does he put out podcasts or what? And yeah, I appreciate it, dude. I appreciate the tune-up because, you know, if I feel like nobody fucking notices I put something out, I don't put something out. I just got to get cracking and, you know, like, just sit it's not like I'm not in the car enough, right? I have no time, not ever. I mean, I could put something out. So anyway, yeah, some of the stuff I wanted to hit on was there was a couple of questions that came up in the chat, and one was about some goings on from a couple of years ago in Venezuela, And I think that sort of warrants a revisiting. And then also somebody had asked about ideal weapons for home protection. And as opposed to like just talking on, whatever individual firearms, like we could talk some concepts, some ideas, because ideally you want to not get to a spot where you're shooting at somebody in your own house, because one, if you're shooting, that necessarily means when the cops show up that they're probably shooting back, because if there's just somebody in there, a lot of states in the union are going to come to you with like, well, you weren't ever really at risk. You should have just gone upstairs and called the cops or some kind of weird shit. So whatever. We'll talk about some of that shit, after. Some of the other things I wanted to hit on was I had a chance to talk to this dude. This dude had hit me up on the gram, and I had a short conversation with this dude. And it's one of these accounts where it's a kind of a, how can I say, man, like a pro men, like a manliness type account. And I'll say that, like, I know that there are some accounts of that sort out there that are like, well, let me just say this about that. I know there's some out there that are, one, they're just bait, they're just bullshit, and others are just borderline gay. And honestly, like, closer to gay porn than, like a proper manliness, like, here, go make something of yourself. Like the Arnold Schwarzenegger thing, all right? Like, one, the idea of you get your lift on, make yourself as fit as you can. All right, good, dude, that's good. I will say, though, that, like, the Arnie posting must go, dude. I am not an Arnie fan. And straight away, I'll tell you why. Because any pro bodybuilder, your Arnie included, is a chemical freak. Like, this is not a person who is fit. This is like a chick with fake tits. All right, you paid money. Like, yeah, there's work, there's genetics, there's a lot of effort involved, there's a lot of careful dieting. This is an around-the-clock gig. But let's not fuck around, man. Like, this is like being a very good pole dancer. You dropped a lot of money. You got enhanced in an unnatural way. And yeah, you did put in a lot of work to be able to spin on that pole and do the splits and put your legs behind your head and all that shit. It's impressive and all that shit, but it's absolutely without utility. Absolutely without utility. And the steps that you've gone to actually hamper you. So when I see some of these things that are like, yeah, like the Euro aesthetic type shit, like, yeah, dude, be fit, beautiful women, I'm a fan of that. Great architecture, a fan of that. But the chemical shit, where it mixes in, I think it sends a very negative message, and I'll tell you why. Because, and this is something else I wanted to get into as I start talking about the masculine posting type tip. And I'll get to those details later, but I want to say this first. Is that I think a lot of what we see online, just like with any influencer type thing, I think there's a situation where when you see something that's like too good, comes across as like too perfect, right? Like you look at some of these Euro aesthetic type things and it's like some steroided out, jacked motherfucker. And what it kind of does to you is the same thing as like when you see like just a black and white photo of like this really cool, well-dressed motherfucker, on Lake Como in Italy in his sweet little motorboat with a beautiful woman. And you're like, dude, that is 1,000,000,000,000 miles away from me. There is not a way I can ever get to there from here. Fuck it, man. I'm going to be trailer trash. I'm just going to go drink a whole case of Bud Light and say fuck it and just be nobody. I think it has an actual negative effect. I think it does this thing where they're showing you something that you could never in 1,000 years aspire to. And unless you are a pro bodybuilder on the gear with tremendous genetics, you will not ever get to that. What I could say about the other influencer type posting where it's like, oh, here's this, whatever, like some hot girl in another vacation spot. It's a fucking picture, dude. And you know what, I'm probably saying something. There's like a lot of younger people that are like, yeah, asshole, everybody knows that. Like, everybody knows that is not a real Nigerian prince, dude. We understand that. You're old and stupid. That's the trouble here. But for people that don't know it, is there have been a lot of stories where like there's people that are, bunny ears influencers, and they're literally breaking themselves in half financially to give this appearance that like, yeah, man, I know people in places, I'm fucking respected and wanted and everybody digs seeing me and I'm jet setting and I'm here and I'm there and I'm having the best time and holy shit, don't you wish your life was like mine? And people look at it and you're like, I'm just a fucking schnook. Like, I'm fucking nobody. This sucks. No, dude, it's fucking fake, man. It's not a real fucking thing. It's a fucking picture. It's fucking it's like the airbrush in real life, right? Like your whole life is airbrushed. It's fucking fake. Like your fucking clothes are pinned just so and you're holding very still. You're making a little happy face with some fucking broad that you rented by the hour. That's not your fucking boat. That's not your fucking villa. You're there, like, you know, some chick, like, you're there because you blew some guy and he let you take a picture with him and now you're getting your ass kicked back home. Or like, you know, these broads that are like, I'm in Dubai, OMG. You're a whore. Okay, it's not real fucking life. So when I'm looking at, like, you know, rewinding now to like the masculine posting where we're looking at like some steroided out motherfucker living that good life, living in that really sweet villa. And we have a way of looking at this and going, oh, dude, it should be me, but it can't be me. Fuck, I suck. No, dude, you don't suck. You're a normal fucking person. Most people are normal fucking people. I'm normal people. All right? To me, like the idea of the masculine posting, and I mean, I mean to get to this, you know, more in detail, specifically to the conversation I had with this guy, is about you being the best you that you can be. And that sounds fucking corny, but you are the product of thousands of generations of effort and work and struggle and survival. So to look at yourself and say, oh, I fucking suck. Because what? Because you don't look good on fucking Instagram? Fuck that, dude. You look exactly how you should fucking look. You are a fucking success story, dude. You are here because a lot of people fucking won. You are the descendant of winners, man. So in that sense, take pride in that, dude. You get out there and you make the most of yourself that you can. And then you pass on something better to the kids that come after you, yes? To the man yet to come, in the words of our favorite uncle. So in the immediate then, man, to kind of take it back down a notch before I get too spun up, some of the things that came up in the chat. First, a dude had asked about this thing that went on, I want to say it was like 2020, where these fucking dudes, like some military dude got rolled up in Venezuela saying that he was there like on orders to do some shit. And I don't remember if it was like to assassinate somebody or to do some kind of shit or something. I don't know what it was, but there was that dude, and I want to say he had like two friends with him, and I don't remember what their story was, but the story was that like this guy was an actual army dude and got pinched in Venezuela, and I don't recall now what he was doing specifically, but he did get rolled and did say that he was there to, I don't know, just fuck around. And the dude in the chat, sorry, I can't remember who it was that asked, but a dude had asked though, what do you think of this? Like, what's your take on this? Is this like what the fuck is this? Just going off of what I see in the newspaper, right? Just in the story, right? If what I'm seeing is accurate, because I have no way of knowing what was or wasn't lost in translation between what that guy said to the Venezuelans who rolled him up, what the Venezuelans who rolled him up said to the Venezuelan press or the government, what that government said to our government, and then what our government said to the media here in the US. So that's a lot of places where some shit can get lost or spun or doctored or just blatantly fucking made up. I don't fucking know. However, just based on what we are seeing, you know, or did see, I think there are a few things that we could take away, and I think it can also speak a little bit to what we can, you know, an opinion we can form about the way that our government does business. So first, we can say that the government definitely doesn't like anything that's going on in Venezuela, just like they don't like anything that's going on in Cuba or anything that's going on in Russia or Iran or, well, I mean, that's pretty much, you know, until recently Syria, right? But these central bank types, they're really getting their dick beaters into everything, and they basically stranglehold these people, starve these people out until they bend and give what they want. So this thing in Venezuela, though, what it kind of reminds me of, though, is that, like, just like with Cuba or just like with any of these other places, they don't like to show their hand. Like if we look and we see what's happening and we hear the stories coming out, we know what's going on. We know that there's a shit ton of sanctions. We know that there's a ton of fucking around, but we also know that the U.S. government doesn't like to show its hand and ever say like, yeah, we're doing that. Like we're really making regular people's lives difficult. And by making their lives difficult, our hope is that they'll make the government people's lives difficult and they'll resist at some point. And then we can come in and give, then we can come and help. I'm from the U.S. I'm here to help. Here's a dildo, right? So we know that they like to keep this shit to themselves. So that said, looking at that situation in Venezuela, I would say that no, probably this was not on the level. If it was, I don't know who the fuck would have approved that, or because, anytime there's something like this where you're going to go into a country that we're not bunny ears officially operating in, there's going to be an ass ton of meetings and sign-offs and, contingency talk-throughs and like, hey, man, look at this thing. Does this make any sense to you? And what could go wrong with this? And people will talk this shit to death. And a lot of times they'll talk this kind of shit to death so much so that like by the time you get a workable plan, the situation has changed completely. And you're like, well, it doesn't fucking matter now because that guy's gone and a whole new thing has happened and we got to start all the way fucking over. So in that sense, I would look at this and say, no, this is probably not the way that went down. What I would say though, because what does that leave you then? It leaves you like, yeah, these were just some guys that went and tried to fuck around. Is that a possibility? You would think. You really would think like, no, that's a stupid fucking idea. Who would be that dumb? I will say that, yes, motherfuckers are that stupid. And I will tell you, and I had mentioned a little bit about this in the chat, dude. I will tell you a fucking story about stupidity. After I got out, man, like, when you're looking to get out, it's very weird, like being in that scene. As an operator, you think you're like in the fucking mob, and the second you get out, people are going to be chomping at the bit and like, bro, let me hire you to fucking do this thing and that thing and other thing. And like, no, man, nobody fucking wants shit from you. And then dudes start getting ideas. And every fucking guy, like, you will not ever talk to an operator that got out and is like, I don't really have any ideas on what I'm going to do. I think I heard like one guy once say, I'm not sure. And that was in the fucking 90s, dude. That was a long fucking time ago. That's the only guy I've ever heard like, yeah, I don't really know, man. I don't have any idea what I'm going to do. But everybody else, man, is like, I got these ideas, bro. I got this shit. I'm going to do this shit and that shit. I got some fucking plans and I got an idea for a business. And like everybody's got this fucking idea for a business. But most of the time, these are just fucking screwballs who, if we're being honest and direct, are not especially good at many things other than carrying heavy shit uphill and shooting straight. This is just the fact of the matter. So, dudes get out and they come up with fucking wacky ideas, and then it'll shift to like, well, what can I do that nobody else physically can or is willing to do? Because that's what got me by, during my whole military career, is being harder, being able to put out a little more, having a little athletic talent, and just being able to take a fucking beating, more so than anybody else. That's what that was your bread and butter. So how can you do that now? And this is where like the snowball shit type thing starts. So I had gotten out and I heard from this dude who was actually a fairly senior dude that I had known a little bit while I was in. But he was a fairly senior guy in the community. And this dude hit me up and he was like, hey, what's up? Do you want to come around? You want to get a beer and let's talk about some things? And there's this tone that dudes will take, like when they've got some shit up their sleeve, where it's like, hey, what's up, dude? Like if you just wanted to hang out, like, hey, man, you want to catch up? You want to get lunch or something? Or I had some ideas I wanted to bounce off you. Like, yeah, all right. And that's usually just what it is. But when a dude is like, we should talk about some shit, like, oh, fuck, here we go. So I go meet with this dude, and he's got this dude, and then he's got this other dude who was not ever an operator. He was never in the military, so far as I know. But this other dude was like Mr. Fugitive recovery guy, like Dog the Bounty Hunter, best value brand type shit. But I'm talking to these two guys, And they're talking about all manner of good ideas. And this is like another avenue where shit gets weird, where dudes will have like 100 different halves of an idea. Like, we could do this and we could do this and also that. And man, so many ways that we could get paid. And like, yeah, but all of these are like half an idea. So these two guys, they got like this fugitive recovery idea. They got this security idea. They got this idea for like, what would you say? Like sort of acting as an agency that would connect, high value individuals with people who could work personal security or work like as an advance, like, I'm going to fucking Spain and I'm wealthy. Will you please fly ahead and make sure I've got a car lined up and a villa lined up and all this shit, So like connecting these kinds of things, except all they have is ideas, right? They don't have any of the moving parts for any of this shit. So I meet with these guys a couple of times and they have a couple different ideas. Some ideas are fucking nutty. Some ideas are actually doable, but it's like, if you know the right people and you have these other connections and you have some of these quals that you're going to have, like armed security type shit, you got to have some of these lame-o type quals to actually do some of the high-speed shit you're wanting to do. I don't know that they ever had any of that shit. So this guy calls me then one day and he's like, all right, brother, we got a meeting with DHS. Come on over here. We're going to meet over at this hotel and da-da-da-da. So we're going to meet at this pretty nice hotel, which is a pretty normal thing for a lot of this type shit. Like nice hotels, if you dressed the part, you could walk in there and sit around, sit at a coffee shop, sit in the little lobby area, break out maps and charts. They don't give a shit, man. It looks like, things are happening at the fucking Waldorf or whatever, They like that shit. So we're going to meet at this hotel, and I'm not completely sure what we're going to be talking about. So my plan is I'm going to get over there a little bit early and I'm going to see these two jokers and like, all right, what the fuck are we doing over here exactly? That way I can at least be halfway up to speed and have some fucking clue. So I get over there a little bit early. Surprise, surprise, fucking DHS guy is already there. And you can see, like, if you've seen any of these sorts, you recognize them, man. Like, they're a little bit schlubby. They're wearing some suit that don't fit that good. It's very dumpy looking, but they look pretty proud of themselves because they're part of the big machine and you're not, and fuck you. So, hey, come on in here and sing and dance for me. You're like, yeah, great, terrific. So I go sit down with these guys and I'm just kind of like, hey, how you doing? Nice to meet you. And I'm going to try to sort of keep my mouth shut until I have some idea what the fuck is going on, because I still really don't know what we're meeting this guy about. Because we're doing this, don't talk on the phone, bro, type shit. At least give me a hint, right? But instead I get over there, I got no idea. I go sit down with these guys, and I'm like, all right, what the fuck are we trying to sell to this dude? And we're sitting there, and now, much to my chagrin, it's like the worst of all the wacky ideas. It's not, any of the half of the good ideas. It's the wackiest of the wacky ideas. So these two guys get this fucking guy from DHS, and they got him in this fucking hotel, and they got a big fucking nautical chart out, and they're talking about how we're going to go to fucking Cuba, organize an over-the-beach insertion, right? We're going to insert guys fucking doo-doo, going to fucking hustle up here over the beach in Cuba. We're going to go find, and I can't remember this, is some woman, and I can't remember her name or even exactly what she did. I want to say she had like killed a cop or some shit. Had killed a cop or murdered some number of people, and then had hauled ass to Cuba and was just hiding out living in Cuba. But as I recall, there was like a pretty decent sized reward on this woman's head. But the idea then was like, we're going to go to Cuba, we're going to illegally put ourselves in Cuba, find this woman, and then rendition her, right? This word rendition, this is basically kidnapping. This is nice guy word for kidnapping, right? So we're going to rendition this woman, put her on a boat, get back out to sea, bring her back to the U.S., hand her over to DHS, and then we're going to get paid. Going to get paid whatever this fucking practical joke reward was. So, never mind you, like, so far as I know, we don't have anybody with that kind of nautical capability. And even if we did, like, okay, you got a giant fucking sailboat, inconspicuous sailboat guy. You're out there offshore, just hanging around being sailboat guy, whatever, taking your wife fishing down by Cuba. I don't fucking know. We don't have any of like small rubber boats, whatever. Nobody has thought through, like, what are you going to do if you come ashore and there's John Law? What are you going to do if you come ashore and there's, I don't know, the fucking a meter maid? I don't goddamn know. What's your fucking plan? 2, how are you going to find this fucking woman? Do you know anybody that even speaks Spanish? I don't speak no fucking Spanish, right? I can order a taco. That's it. That's all I can do. I can get a taco. But I can't ask, where is, do you know anyone know of any terrorist activities around here? Turka Turka, Muhammad Jihad. I don't fucking know. We don't have anybody that could spot this woman. If we're going to go and pinch her and roll her up, what are you going to do, man? Like put her in a rug and roll her up and just carry her to the fucking beach? How far is she from the beach? I don't goddamn know. Do you have a rental car? Are you going to steal her car? I have no idea. Right? So none of this shit has been thought through. Like no fucking clue. But we're pitching this to DHS. And this guy is sitting there and he's listening to this shit and he's like, you know, he hears the whole fucking thing out. Like, I just tried to just sit and listen and nod and like, like none of the contingencies, like none of the actual operation had been thought through. I think this was like just, hey, what would you think if we did some shit like this? And this dude listens to the whole fucking thing and he's like, I can't recommend that you do anything like this. Like no shit, like do not fucking do this shit. And if you do something like this, do not fucking tell me. So it was basically like, look, man, if you miracle her here, it would have been better if you didn't say anything at all to me. Like it was basically like if you miracle her here and she just materializes here and you put her in my hands, I'm not going to say no thanks. I'm not going to really ask you where you got her. That's not really my problem. But don't fucking tell me that you're going to go invade another country, you dumb motherfucker, and then kidnap somebody who might have residency there. She might be a citizen there by now, for all you know. So don't tell me you're going to do these things. And then, you know, and then what? Involve me in it because I'm fucking Mr. Government Guy or some shit? Like, the look on this fucking guy's face was like, what the fuck are you talking about? And I'm just sitting there like, fuck, dude. So I was careful to not give this guy my name because the last thing I fucking need is like, yeah, that's very interesting. I can't recommend you do it, but hey, why don't you give me your names and I'll have somebody take a close look at everything you're saying and doing online, and then we'll see what shakes loose. So long story long, looking back at this Venezuela thing, then I would say that it is actually a better chance that somebody just made a decision to do something incredibly fucking wacky as opposed to the government said, hey, why don't you guys just, I don't know, just go on down to Venezuela and walk in there and start, I don't know, set something on fire and make some threats or do something crazy. And how you getting back? No idea. Fuck that. I wouldn't go to that. So that's just what I think about that situation. Anyway, the other question then was about the home defense tip. And I will say that, I mean, I know that a lot of like your Mark 1 motto cookie cutter answer is like, I got a pistol by my bed. And then the other one is like, I have a shotgun and that'll fuck some, like you can't miss with a shotgun. I'll start with this. Like, it's like asking, like, are there any good bars around here or something? Well, it depends. But still, in terms of how do you protect your house and, you know, your people, if you have anybody there, again, I'll say it just depends. So what I would say first off is look at your situation. Look at where you live. Look at what you have going on and think through what could possibly happen. Like, what do you see going on here? Like, what is the most likely home invasion situation that you are concerned about? Is it somebody fucking with your car in the driveway? Is it somebody trying to sneak through your back door? If you live on a farm, is it somebody way out there fucking with your, I don't know, your combine machine, your grain getting machine or whatever, right? What is your situation that you'd say, like, this is probably, if somebody does something, here's what they'll be doing, right? So think through that shit first and then address accordingly. What you're going to want to consider is a few things. Like, one, you're going to be fucking spun up. Like, if you got to pull that trigger, you're going to be fucking wound tight and you don't want to fuck this up. So something like like an apartment, the last thing you want is like a big fuck off rifle. Like, you do not want like an AR-15 if you're going to be in, say, an apartment. So if we think this through, if we're thinking of, say, just an apartment as an example, right? Like you think of an apartment, how's somebody going to get in there? If you have like a first floor apartment, maybe there's a chance they come in through like a sliding door or a window or something. Yeah, that's a concern. If you're on like a second floor or third floor or anything above that, where are they coming in through? They're only coming through that one fucking door, man. And in an apartment, how far are you going to probably be shooting? Not that fucking far. So something like a rifle, this becomes more of a hindrance than a help, right? Because now you got to wield this thing around corners and shit. If you got to present it at all, you're practically sticking it right in the guy's face. Now he's got a chance to grab it and push it out of the way before you can do the deed. That's not helpful at all. So in this situation, you want to consider like what's something I can work with more up close. Second, you want to consider like what happens if you pull that fucking trigger. Right? If you pull that trigger and you're not going to see the fucking sights, dude. I'm going to tell you that right now. This shit is just, you're like, oh my God, and like kablam, and like this shit's just going to happen. What you don't want is to be somewhere like, again, say an apartment, and even if you hit the dude, if you got some giant fuck off rifle, like you're swinging an AR-15 or an AK or something, that thing is going to go right through him. Even if you hit the dude breaking into your place, you hit the dude, it can go right through him, through the wall, into the next apartment, and hits who the fuck knows what. Who the fuck knows who. That's not some pain in the ass that you want. Same way, if you've got, say, a farmhouse or something, now, if you're worried that somebody's going to be out there, way out there in the field, I don't know, fucking with your tractor or stealing your corn. I don't live on a farm, dude. I'm trying to help you. Or, you got a gate out there and somebody's fucking around with your gate or whatever, your well, I don't know. Now, like, what the fuck good is a handgun gonna do you? Like, maybe you got a long range type weapon and you can even get on the optic and like, all right, yeah, I could see what they're doing. It's some kids are out there, they're just drinking, they're fucking around. I'll yell at them, hey, get out of here, you goddamn kids. And that'll solve the issue, right? Or if you're in South Africa and it's some dusty Africans doing that little loping run that they do, don't come to fuck around. Well, you're way far away now, and you can start solving problems, before problems get to you. So this is the kind of thing that you want to consider. So, like, what is your environment like? What is the most likely situation you see happening? What does that look like? And then who else do you got around, right? Because if you got like a woman, kids, like the last thing you would want, like say you got a teenage kid or something and they're coming home fucked up and they don't want to wake you up, so they're sneaking in, but you don't fucking know, right? What kind of a horrible situation does this create? Or whether you've got something like, I want to have it handy, like, the pistol in the drawer beside my bed or whatever, right? Well, do you have small kids? What the fuck could go wrong now? Or if you've got a situation where like you've got a woman and maybe she's a little antsy in the pantsy and you're the one that's fucked up trying to sneak in without waking anybody up. You don't want to get smoked doing that, do you? Coming back from just one at the pub and now you got a hole where you had no holes before. You don't want that. So something like that, you want to have it worked out. Like, where do you put this shit? And do you have any kind of like a challenge and reply, right? Like Magilla, gorilla, so that they know it's you. Or if it's like, hey man, if I call out and like Magilla and there's no gorilla on the other end, then like I know that's not, like your kid or your wife, or it's not you coming back from the pub, and now bad things are going to happen to that person. But these are all things that you got to work out. Apart from that, I would recommend, like, what if you don't have that firearm within reach? Right? Because what does this situation look like? Maybe you're down there just making dinner and you're in there whipping up a pizza or some shit, and she's over there on the couch looking at Instagram or some shit, and now there's a knock at the door and it's that African. And he talking about, my car break down, you think maybe I can use your phone? Open the door, I'm going to use your phone. And like a dumbass, she opens the door. All right, are you going to run upstairs and grab a heater or whatever? Like, what's going on here? No. So in this situation, it's smart money to look around, like take an inventory. What do you have around you? Do you got a big ass, like a giant glass ashtray that you put your keys in? That's a weapon right there. Dang, like you take one of those across the noggin, you're not going to fuck around. Is there anything like that you can use as an improvised weapon within arm's reach? If you don't have anything like that, it's smart money to just put things like that. You know, if you have like small kids, you don't want small kids fucking around with a gun, but is your kid going to fuck around with a giant glass fuck off ashtray? No, probably not. It's a fucking ashtray. What do I want with that? Right? That's not any fun. But it's a good improvised weapon, and it's right over there. So if there's anything like this that you can set up different places where, like, yeah, if somebody fucks around here, I got this. If they fuck around there, I got that. Apart from that, man, I would say, like, take a look at where you live. Because if it becomes a thing like you're in... Dude, I talked to this chick from I've talked to a few people from South Africa, I'll tell you that. Like, every time I meet somebody from South Africa, I always ask, you know, like, tell me the straight deal, dude. I've never heard anything other than what we've all always heard, but I'll always ask just because I've never been there. And every single person that I've ever asked from South Africa is like, dude, it's so much worse than you've ever even heard. I'm like, well, I've heard quite a bit. You know, you'd be surprised, right? I mean, you know how we hear about this shit, but they talk about, dude, it's insane. This woman's telling me about, you know, you drive home, like you got remote control, open and close gate. You got barbed wire across the top of that gate. When you're driving to your house, if you see somebody hanging around outside, you know, the coloreds, and if they're hanging out outside, you drive right on by, man. Do not fucking open that gate and cruise on it because they're going to come right in behind you. Now it's like, why the hell do you even have that gate, right? Because you just opened it for them. So you're going to want that gate. You're going to want that barbed wire. When you're inside here, it's time to go to bed, time to go to sleep. You sleep upstairs, man. And you've got like this, like top of the stairs locked door that you lock this fucking thing down. And if somebody's going to try to get in there, well, now you got like these narrow steps. You got to, what are you going to do? You're going to swing a sledge in there? No, you're not, man. You're going to have to work this shit out. So it just makes it so Dindu can't get in there and fuck with you when you're trying to sleep. But these are the kind of things that, you know, instead of like, hey, should I spend a bunch of money, a bunch of time training, getting ready to get it on right here at my house? The easier money is like, is there a way I can just move the fuck out of here? If that's not plausible for you, I mean, if it's like, dude, no, this is my fucking house. And sometimes there's some element around here, but I'm not doing that shit. Okay, don't, man. I can dig it. But, you know, that is an option a lot of times. I mean, dude, I moved several time zones away, you know, for just this reason. You know, like, dude, I can't live in this place anymore. It's fucking dicey here. So I fucked off out of there. But yeah, that's kind of my 2 cents on, you know, like the home defense tip. Keep your shit locked, you know, keep your doors locked, keep your windows locked, and keep an eye out for people that are like watching you, like looking at like, is any of this shit worth taking? And I guess that's something that goes on with like food delivery and shit like that too. You know, like Uber fucks and DoorDash and this. Like part of this is like a recon gig. Like, oh, there's food delivery in a decent neighborhood or food delivery in these apartments. I can get a look inside real quick and like, doop, yeah, okay. And cruise up and down the thing and like, who's in here? Who's in there? Who's got nice shit, you know? Is there anything worth breaking in here and taking? Or is there a house where it's like, this is a vacation house, nobody's ever here? Yeah, I'll get in here with my boys and just snatch a bunch of shit and haul ass, right? It's also something to be aware of. Like if you do the Uber Eats or the DoorDash shit, and these motherfuckers, like meet these motherfuckers in the driveway. Like, just give me my fucking food. Get the fuck out of here. All right. Don't come looking in my house, fucking around. There's nothing wrong with that. Especially, you know, somebody's going to be hurting their ass. Like, dude, your racial group has an impression they make. That ain't my fucking fault. Talk to your co-ethnics. All right. Wrapping it up then, man, I wanted to hit a little more on this, the masculine posting, like this kind of shit. So I was on the gram, as I am wont to do, and somehow still not launched off of there. But yeah, I was on there, and I had made a comment on one of these masculine post account type things, and it was talking about, like, what does it mean to be a man? And I was like, well, shit, dude, I'm old as fuck. And if I haven't figured out how to be a man by now, I'm probably not going to. So let me put my 2 cents in here. So I start typing. And as I'm wont to do, right, it gets a little bit wordy and I'm talking more than I need to talk. But the guy that runs the thing hits me up and he's like, hey, man, I like your post. And, you know, hey, check out my shit. And da-da-da-da. And I guess the impression I get, anyway, the guy that I had talked to, this guy's account name is Narrow Way Man. And I ain't going to shill for the guy. I looked at some of his stuff. It's not bad stuff. I'm not going to shill for the guy. I'm not going to poo-poo the guy. Dude appears to be a younger dude. But then again, compared to me, most dudes appear to be a younger dude. So how the fuck do I know, right? But went back and forth with the guy just a little bit. And basically what this guy's got, I took a look at his account. And he's got like got a thing going where he's kind of promoting like the Christian masculinity type vibe. And hey, me, man, I'm not especially a church enjoyer. I'm not going to knock anybody that goes for it. You know what I will also say, though, I guess ironically enough, is that in spite of not being so much of a church enjoyer, and I actually grew up like neck deep in the church, and just over the course of my kind of fucked up life, it just doesn't work for me, man. But what's kind of weird, I guess, is that as a Christian lifestyle goes, slowly but surely, I'm probably living a stricter lifestyle than most of your church-going folk. Which is weird. I mean, it's a way to think of it, I suppose, because it's like you got these things. It's like, hey, man, don't do this. Don't do this. Hey, always do this. Never do this. And instead of like, well, why the fuck am I going to behave that way? And instead of just taking anybody's word for it, I'll go out here, make a mess of things, put my own self in a bind, fuck myself up a little bit, and then, you know, slowly but surely, like, yeah, maybe there's a kind of a way that I should behave that's better than other ways I behave. And, you know, which brings us to where we are today. I guess kind of what I wanted to hit on, though, and I don't know I don't know, you know, like the algorithm thing. I get a lot of, dude, how could you say, man? I get a lot of that, not really, I don't know, maybe kind of like Christian masculine type account type shit that pops up. And like the Baldwin the Fourth thing from that Kingdom of Heaven, there's like a lot to work with. It's a very cool character. I don't know nothing about the guy. Like, it would probably be the smarter money to like learn something about him before I talk about him. As all I know is like the character I see in a movie. But just like with so many movie characters, whether this thing was designed to be like a haha up yours to white people or to Christians or to any of this, nonetheless, I think there are some truths in this, especially in this film, that kind of seep through that we tend to grab onto. And just like American History X, where this is meant to be like an anti-national socialist film. This is meant to be, one race, a human race, and, hate begets hate and bad noise begets, you get what you put out into the universe, this kind of hippie bullshit, right? This is what it's meant to be, but we all see it, and the truths that are there, because they can't avoid that. The truth has a way of seeping its way into things, and we grab onto those things, and we see them, and we go, yeah, this, and they're like, yeah, that's not what the movie's about. Well, yeah, but that's what this scene is about, and that's what I identify with. That's what I'm going to hang on to, and that's what we take away. So, like this Kingdom of Heaven film, where you've got this Baldwin the Fourth, I'm guessing, the king, right, the emperor or whatever, and he's talking with the guy, and he's talking about how a king can move a man can move a man, a father may claim a son, but that your soul is in your keeping alone. And when you stand before God, you will not be able to say that I was told by others to do thus. It will not suffice. You cannot say that virtue was not convenient at the time. And that really kind of hit me, man, because it reminded me of when I had very first stood up my own business. And at the time, there was a gaggle of us that were all working together. And we're talking to this lawyer, and he's like, all right, so I understand that you guys are all friends, and I understand that you guys are all tight, and you all have history together, but we're going to stand up a very clear operating agreement. And what this lines out is not how we're all going to conduct ourselves when we're all getting along. This is how we're all going to conduct ourselves, what each person owes, what each person is responsible for, each person's duties, each person's obligations and responsibilities for when you don't all get along. And that really kind of hit me, because it's like, hey, man, we're all good with this, right? We're all good with this. But in the time that has passed, there have been lots of guys that have come and gone from the work that I do. And there's been lots of times where I've had to go back and be like, look, motherfucker, you signed this shit. This is what you said you would do. This is some shit you said you would not do. I have to hold you to this. We agreed on this at the time. Just because you need some money right now, or just because you don't feel like doing X, Y, and Z, that doesn't change your obligation. Your feelings on the matter, or whether it's convenient or not, does not change. This is what you said you would do. And this really kind of hit me when I saw this, like, just in a film sense, in a broader sense. that when we say virtue, whether it's convenient or not, this is something you must do. I think to us, especially as white men, where we see in our society that women and children in our society have essentially no obligations. There are no duties except do whatever the fuck you want, which is essentially, right, who says that, right? The whole of the law, do as thou wilt, right? That's what applies to women and children at present. But for you, for any man who can look around and see that in the absence of duty, in the absence of obligation, that society is crumbling, you have that obligation then to do the right thing, to do the virtuous thing. And what I think needs to be said is that often enough, we will say that virtue is defined in the things that you don't do, right? Don't drink, don't smoke, don't do drugs, don't pick fights you don't need to pick. Don't do this thing, don't do that thing. But this is not the whole of the idea of virtue. There's also a component of this where there are things that you are obligated to do. And often enough, I think that we allow ourselves, and definitely people around us, the people that don't quite have a grasp on things that are going on, allow themselves to be conned into doing nothing and believing that by doing nothing, they're still okay. That by doing nothing, they're still virtuous as long as they don't do the wrong thing. I'm not upsetting anybody, so I'm just kind of voting present. Well, my friend, that is just not good enough, dude. It is just not good enough, because sitting on your ass and idly watching, look around you, man, and tell me how well that's worked out. What I find interesting is that quite often enough, like we saw with this COVID thing, I think is a perfect example, dude. And I'm not going to argue the virtues of immunizations or antivirus or this or what the fuck ever. What I can say for sure about the COVID thing is this is some shit you guys came up with on your own. According to your own numbers, something that did not represent any greater threat than the average flu season. You came up with something to inject in people that did not meet your own testing standards. I don't need to be a scientist to see this shit. What are your standards for saying a thing is safe to shoot into people, to shoot into kids, for fuck's sake? Well, here's your standards. This doesn't meet your standards. Why should I be cool with it? But they will still come to you and say it's mandatory, it's mandated, you have to do it. And instead of standing up and saying, you know what, no, I don't fucking think so, people they'll just take it, for one, or two, just sit idly by and say, well, I don't want to raise a stink, man. I gotta keep the lights on, I gotta get paid too. I'm just going to keep quiet. I'm just going to not say anything. And interestingly enough, I was in a position, and I'm still largely in a position, where I don't have to worry so much about getting paid. Like, I am pretty much all right. I don't have to worry too much about it. And I had occasion to get into it with people on this. And what I find often enough is that just by saying that, like, no, just to take the virtuous stand and say no, according to what is obviously the truth, regarding this. What is obviously the truth? You're full of shit. I'm not going to fucking play ball on this. I'm not going to say the emperor is wearing fine new clothes. I'm not going to say that this thing is good for the whole of humanity. I'm not going to fucking do it. And you'll watch people just fucking fold up. And then you'll watch other people actually find their spine and like, yeah, he has a good point. And I know that you've seen it the same way when we talk about genocides, when we talk about Israel, when we talk about demographic replacement, when we talk about, look at your elementary school. I mean, even you, if you're in your 20s and you look at where you went to elementary school, chances are that you cannot go back to that elementary school and see the same number of white faces that you did when you were a kid going to school there. It's that way everywhere. And people will and poo-poo, and unless they're like a proper paid agent, unless they're a dedicated, diehard activist, most people, once they hear the right thing come out, they hear one person willing to stand up and do the virtuous thing and say, this is bullshit, man. What you're saying is a fucking lie. Here is the truth. A lot of people will find their spine suddenly and say, yeah, he's right. He's right. He's telling you the truth. Why are you lying to me? Why are you lying to people? But all it really takes is that one person. And I guess, when I was thinking about just letting the little subscription thing I have to post this shit on like Spotify and YouTube and shit. It's on YouTube still. Can you even believe that? But when I was thinking about just letting that lapse, and I'm like, I don't know, that many people don't see it, and it's kind of a pain in the ass, and maybe, maybe it'd just be easier to keep it on Telegram. But then I think of the fact that a lot of times it's only one person that needs to hear somebody speak up, needs to hear somebody say the right thing, say the true thing. It doesn't have to be like your fucking opinion. Say the true thing. And they'll find their spine. And then they can inspire somebody else, and on down the line. But if they don't ever hear it from somebody with a big enough set of nuts to actually stand up and say something, then where are they? They're just going to stay sitting there. And you can be that person. So then I thought, like, dude, all right, if I can just say something that inspires one fucking person, any one autist out there, I only need one autist, then it'll be well worth the while. Yeah. But in that sense, man, this dude, Narrow Way, man, he's got some decent takes, man. I'm not going to properly shill for him, and I don't know that he has any interest in, any of our politics. Maybe the dude disagrees entirely. But I did tell him I would send him a piece of this, a link to this shitty podcast, and a link to the chat. So if you see the dude pop in, do pop up and say hello, throw the guy a Roman and say what's up. Anyway, that's about the size of it, dude. I think I'm going to go in here to the airport and get my stuff rifled through because it's what I live for. I do still need to go through the Muslim conquest of Spain because I started down that road and I looked for a decent audiobook and I tried to find one that was like, just give me something that's like no bullshit. Just give me the facts. Give me something I could hang a hat on, not some well-spun political drama. And I found some red copy of an old book from, I want to say, the 30s. I was like, yeah, this should be good. And I fire it up, man, and it's like this audiobook, and it's being read by some soul brother like no other, and you can hear the Kangism coming off of this guy. With like unprecedented advances in medicine and architecture and mathematics, and I'm like, this is fucking horrible. I could see like the size of this guy's Yaqub head as he's like cooking the perfect man on the Iberian Peninsula. So this is too much for me, man. I couldn't take no more. But what I did take away so far that I'll, when I find a book that I can tolerate listening to or tolerate reading on the Muslim conquest of the Iberian Peninsula and Spain and what have you, what I have taken away so far was that prior to that, it was run by the Visigoths and King Roderick. And if you haven't had a chance, I have a copy someplace, and I don't know which drive or thumb drive or hard drive or whatever rodeo drive where I put it, but I had a copy of the Visigoth Code, and there's a lot of laws in there particular to our tiny hatted friends. Like, these people did not like these motherfuckers, and who can blame them, right? Like, how many times do you got to get launched out? There was a lot of laws pertaining to these people because they did not like them. And it was actually a Jewish-run historical page that I had read something about this. I'll see if I can find that and put that up. But they're talking about these Visigoths, very anti-Semitic. So when the Moors came, the Jews understandably sided with the Muslim invaders, and they facilitated the conquest and helped out where they could. And in return, when as the Moors rolled on through Spain, they left these Hebrews in charge, and like, here, you be in charge till I come back. And I was like, dude, you people, you just cannot help yourself. But one of the things that I listened to, it was talking about, it was the end of that book about the Inquisition. They're talking about, if they hadn't leaned so hard on the Jewish community, quite possibly Judaism could have sort of died out or sort of, plateaued. But instead, just the way they persecuted, oh my God. So yeah, it's your fault. It's everybody else's fault. It's not your fault. And that's why, you people act the way that you do. But that's really about as much as I can stand, man. So if you're digging this, you know where to find it. But at present, it's on all of the Spotify, Apple, even YouTube, if you can imagine that. And, of course, on the Telegram at t.me/theabusehour. But until next time, man, leave this shit where somebody can find it, dude. And make sure you share a spine with somebody near you. Straighten somebody out, because virtue is always convenient. But until next time, keep your eyes on the horizon. Keep your neck out of the noose. I have been Coffee, and these are my takes.